Alright, hello and welcome to this video. Basically, in this video I'm going to be talking about helorushes in 1v1, or rather how to counter them. The motivation to make this video, or rather what made me make this video, was that there was some guide on Reddit which people really liked, but which I consider not very useful and in many places flat out wrong. So I'm gonna start off with critiquing it, and then I'm gonna show some replays of me, or rather of deployments I did, which I consider to be very good against a mixed strategy of helorushes and non-helorushes against worse players. If you assume the people are equally good as you, it gets a whole lot complicated, and you also have to make a lot of assumptions about the frequency in which they rush or do not rush, and basically what deployments they do. Like, as every time you have to make assumptions about their deployments when you decide how to play, how to build your deck, what units to deploy, and what decisions to make in the game once deployment is over. But I will talk more about that topic. If you want, you can skip directly to that part if you're not interested in the critique of this Reddit post guide against helorushes in 1v1. Yeah, I'll put a timestamp in the description. Alright, let's hope the fucking program doesn't fuck with me and I can actually record this, because earlier I had some issues with those fucking windows. Also, I did not take the time to write a script for this video at all, not even bullet points, so yeah, bear with me. I'm not gonna forget any important stuff, but I might have to think a bit about what I'm going to say at times. Anyway, let's get into it. So basically there was this post about the guide, and people really liked this. They want to add it to the links tab as well. They thought this will result in helorushes being countered often. Yeah. Also, people did not like... Where the fuck is it? Oh yeah, this comment. And to be fair, it doesn't have much substance, but it is mostly correct. Basically, and also to this, the guy who posted replied, it only works if your opponent makes crucial mistakes. That's something I wrote about the specific thing. And he said this is true of anti-helorush tactics always, and that's just flat out wrong. That's completely wrong. A second point he took issue with is that starting with 2 CVs is good, or rather that starting with 2 CVs is bad. On most maps against the helorush, he thought this was incorrect, and basically what he replied to this is a decision you make before you know a helorush is coming. That is true, but you still have already your assumption how many percent of the time a helorush is coming, and you also have assumption from the rank of the opponent how well he will play in other scenarios, and you build your range from those assumptions. Alright, and here also wrote there's a good reason why almost everyone high ranked start with 2 CV. That isn't true. This reason, well, sometimes they do, and when they do, it's mostly because it's a 2-pointer and because they know the opponent, or they know their opponent, and almost all the high ranking people who know each other do not helorush in ranked. For example, neither do I, or neither did I. I'm not playing that much lately because I have like 30 hours a week free time, and wargames just isn't high enough of my priorities such that I get to play a lot, though I do enjoy it every once in a while, and I'll definitely get back for the Israel DLC, which looks very interesting. Alright, back to topic. I'm sorry for that rambling. There will be more of this. Alright, hold on, where was I? God damn it, I should have written bullet points, I guess, but yeah, I mean, just skip to the content part if you do not like this, or just do something else while you listen to this shit. Anyway, alright, his response. Everyone high ranked starts with 2 CVs, yes, but this isn't the reason you think of. The reason is they want like 100 or 50 conquest points more on maps with a 2-pointer, and they know their opponent isn't going to rush them because they know their opponent. If they play against some low-ranked guy, they can start with 1 CV and just make up the points by just making general better decisions. Alright, I think it's clearly justified my advice by saying you won't be able to protect your main CV. I disagree with this. I think your strategy should always rely on just protecting 1 CV, basically because if you only buy 1 CV, you gain quite a bunch of points. You gain like 100 points, or depending what kinds of CV you buy, maybe a little less, but I think these points are a lot better spent in additional anti-air, because if you can't hold your first spawn, a second CV isn't that helpful, because, well, to that point I'll get later in more detail, but I don't think it's viable at all to rush the enemy spawn if you get healer rush, just because your units are a lot slower, and in general attacking in 1v1 a spawn is extremely hard, and you need your opponent to make so many mistakes for it to work, even if you play perfectly. Alright, if you expand on why you disagree, I made a post. This is very fair criticism. In my post here I wrote off almost nothing. Well, I did write 2 or 3 main points I disagree with him, but I did not give a long explanation just because I was too fucking lazy to write it. Also, the reason why I'm making this video, I do not at all want to type this. I really don't. Alright, what else do we have? Good old Mike. Repeating yourself 6 times. These sentences do not mean the same thing, therefore wrong. Yeah. I don't think... Actually here, this has kind of become a meme when I said M36s and 10-point, like 10-point vehicle plus infantry units, which means reservists which come in 5-point transports are good against healer rushes. They are actually good against healer rushes if they are used correctly, because they can meat shield, but they are not really that good against healer rushes you find in 1v1, because the typical like transport helo spam with like 5-point infantry units, it isn't as strong due to the map pool of 1v1. I think in 1v1 you're better off to go with MA24 rushes. I think they are stronger most of the time. Also, I tested this with Faust extensively in January 2016. I played like 10 games against him where I healer rushed him with MA17 plus 5-point infantry, and I was successful maybe like 20% of the time against his blue mixed NATO mechanized, I believe. So yeah, I mean, maybe I did some things wrong, but I tried quite a bit of different things, and I came to the conclusion that in 1v1 it was not viable. Like 2v2 is a different conversation for many reasons. It's more viable there to do it as part of opening range, like you do it 25 to 35% of the time. Though if your opponent is any good, you won't get away with 35%. Probably even 25 is high if your opponent is exactly aware what percentage of the time you're doing it, but I don't want to get into the discussion of how looks the optimal range, like how many times do you start with a range that can win against healer rush, how many times do you healer rush, how many times do you start with a complete range, because it would get extremely complicated and it's pointless, because Red Dragon isn't played competitively, or rather there are no real competitions and people do not really invest time in like figuring stuff out, and so, and like competition isn't really even an ideal, in my opinion, what I've seen from this community. But so I'll only talk about the really existing helorushes in 1v1 ranked, and those people pretty much rush 90 to 100% of the time and rely on nickname changes to win, basically. Alright, let's get into the thing these comments are on, like the thing he wrote. Please go on the screen. Thank fucking god it works now. If I had to do this again, it would be very annoying, but I do not. Alright, let's start off. Helorushes are only wargame tactic I consider illegitimate. I think, well, I mean, fair enough, his opinion, but I think he considers this illegitimate just because it's slightly overpowered and he doesn't really know how to counter it, and the other reason he probably thinks, well, not he thinks, it's so that an optimal range, which includes like how do you say, like 20% helorushes, would result, if both players do it, would result in the average game being 36% of the time a helorush from one or both players, and that would result in boring gameplay. So for that reason, I guess that's the argument you can make for it being illegitimate. However, I think this is also a little bit lack of perspective, because in the history of wargame there have been many things which have been overpowered, like opening rushes. Like at this time it's only the helorush, but earlier there have been APC rushes, there have been, well, the entire Centurion gameplay style could be considered illegitimate because there was like really no counter to it. You had to do the same or do something really crazy and catch your opponent off guard to beat it. So I would say if you call the helorush illegitimate, you also have to call Centurion gameplay and APC rushes in European escalation, for example, and just light vehicle rushes up to, yeah, also European escalations illegitimate. So basically I think this has not as much to do with helorushes itself, but how strong they are, or rather how people do not know how to counter it. Oh yeah, let's get to, there was another comment here somewhere. Alright, I try not, also 11 points, so some people agree with this. Alright, for all times people attempted to put down tactics how to counter helorushing, you've shown up with a couple paragraphs, told them their ideas are bad. Yeah, this was the correct, I guess, but then you usually follow with I can't be bothered to make a guide myself. Actually, I did make a guide on 2v2 helorushes some time ago. I admit it's a bad format, but all the important information are in there, and if you watch it slowly and try to test it and stuff, you have more enough information there to significantly improve how you play against helorushes, or rather a mixed range of standard play and helorushes. Also, he says, you yourself have not even demonstrated you can reliably counter helo cheese, only that you're good at doing the cheese yourself. How I got good at this was by testing multiple things, what you can do about it, what works and what doesn't work about it. So why should any of us believe you when you try to weigh in on other people's anti-cheese tactics? You should believe me because I did test this a lot and I came up with a very efficient rush. Yeah, I mean, not that I don't want to brag, like it's not like it was hard. I just invested some time and I found it. Yeah, pretty much all I did. Alright, but this video, I mean, it's a fair criticism that I do not give enough on my criticism of the original thing, so I'm doing this at length now. Alright, let's get back to this. Outside ranked, this answer is easy. Leave the game if I'm someone who actually wants to play. Very good solution. In ranked, you want to try to fight because you want to keep your elo points. Sure. I mean, alternative, just surrender. Add them to your mute list, and then you have their name. And if you see they are online, you can search for ranked, and if you find them, you can just completely hard counter it. Because as I said, actually he'll mention that later as well. As I said, the helorushers who currently actually play ranked, they are quite bad at the game. in my experience, like I've never met a helorusher in ranked who can actually play a normal game half decent and actually mixes up his helorushes with normal gameplay. It just doesn't exist as far as I know. I could do it, like probably the top 20 players of Wargame Red Dragon could do it if they wanted to, but they do not want to, and I do not want to either. Just to be clear, I do count myself in that category, probably, though I'm not sure because I've been away for quite some time. Do not know if more better people are around than at earlier times. Anyway. 2 dimensions to dealing with a healer rush, arguably there are more. This, the mute trick, Dirty D found this. I also posted a couple of times to Reddit. Dirty D posted first to Reddit, where it's where I found it. Alright, exactly this is against their nickname changes. Alright, now the disagreements begin. If they alternate rushing with playing normality at the level where you can't win if you open with 400 points in reserve. Well, this depends. If they're equally good, then you can't win if you start with 400 points reserve, but you don't need 400 points in reserve, and well, I mean, your win rate isn't going to be 0, so it all depends on what the frequency of their opening with helos is, and I can tell you with a high certainty, or rather I can give you anecdotal evidence that I've never seen a healer rusher in ranked who was good enough at the game to actually alternate his playstyles ever in Wargame. In more than 1,000 games I've played over the 3 Wargames. Actually, that's not true, 1 guy in European Escalation, but that's yeah, some years ago. Alright, I will talk about really existing players. So I will assume they either rush 100% of the time, or they do not healer rush at all, or extremely poorly, in which case you do not need 400 points in reserve either. You will be forced to deal with a healer swarm in normal force. This will result in a lose if you buy a quote-unquote normal force, meaning you spend all your points in the beginning. This will mean you will lose every single time. So yeah, don't expect to win unless your opponent is completely terrible. You can open with a flame for recon, which will be useful throughout the game. I dislike this solution. I think this is bad because you'd rather buy additional anti-air, like in a 2v2. This is very good. Also, you have 10 slots, up to 10 slots in a 2v2 per team. In ranked you only have 4, and yeah, I don't think it's really worth the points at the beginning of the game. So in a 2v2 it would be like 40 to 50 points out of 2000, and in a 1v1 obviously, or like rather 40 to 60 out of 1800, whereas in 1v1 it would be 40, the same amount of points obviously, but out of 900 points you have to spend at most 900 if you get the cheapest CV. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. The helo usually works if you start with helo anyway, or else you can just use a wheeled unit and it will spot it probably soon enough to spawn all your anti-air and start running away with your CV if you have actually enough reserve points. If you do not, you can forfeit straight away. Also, starting with 2 CVs, bad idea. Just get 1 CV, make sure it is in the correct spot in the sector, and you should be able to survive with like 300 or rather 250 to 400 reserve points depending on the map. Alright, so you've spotted the rush. 1 minute of in-game time. This is not 100 points, this is 105 points. I know he may have meant that, but if you're writing a guide, please get it right. You'll have another 50. Actually, if you spot it, you're probably in the middle of the map mostly, or you're further closer to your opponent if you have a plane and they have helos. So this should be more than this number. What do you do? 3 objectives, ensuring your CV survives, agreed, obviously. Killing the enemy CV, disagree. Killing the helos, this is the important part. In my opinion, killing the enemy CV is very unreliable tactic, especially if they spawn like 1 or 2 anti-airs like 1 minute into the game, meaning this will never work. Or if they have 1 recon, like 20 points, spotting your stuff and react correctly. Like basically the only way this works if you drive your forces into their spawn is if your CV at your spawn or your second actually survives, and that's highly inefficient and unreliable, especially because if you don't have much anti-air at your spawn and just 1 CV, their helo swarm will kill the CV in your spawn, and then they go back and will meet your force, which has very limited anti-air in their spawn in time if they're hinds, and you have probably not as much anti-air. If you start with 2 CVs, you have 800 points. If you have no reserve points, the first CV is going to be free anyway. Anyway, this doesn't work in practice. Believe me, I've tested it. I know this is a bad argument, but I think I made also a couple of good arguments to support this. Protecting the CV is where most people fail miserably. I guess that's true. It's not possible to stop the heroes before they reach your spawn. That's true as well, unless you have them in your mute list, in which case you can start with like 600 points anti-air and just laugh as their heroes get evaporated. You should send the second CV to cap a zone. No. Like if you already have a reserve CV, you should hide it somewhere. Like those 50 points or 25 points you lose are not worth it for being a lot more predictable, so you don't go here. Anyway, this is irrelevant. You don't want to start with a second CV regardless. Alright. Yeah, he kind of says this again. You want to run away, but you might as well run away from the beginning. Give up like 20 conquest points or something. And you won't be like here or here where it's predictable. Anyway, don't start with a second CV in the first place. And fast moving into the enemy spawn is bad. Like this shouldn't work for reasons I've mentioned. Base traits are also highly unlikely if the opponent isn't incompetent hero enemy. Expensive anti-air units aren't very good. This is correct. Well, this isn't what is right here. He'll write this later. Yes, you want to preserve anti-air units, obviously. Here comes my main disagreement. He thinks this is a good unit against rush, and to that I can only say he must have never tried this, because only from the spawn delay, like say you buy 200 points of these guys, there's a spawn delay in between units, which I can show later, meaning also they won't get into the right position, and if your opponent has anything that outranges this in the open, it will die, and in the forest, like there could be maps where this works, but they do not currently exist. You want to rely on tracked rapiers, or just like in the current environment also. Like if really good people were doing it, you would probably see a lot of Commonwealth deck, because they can get access to the tracked rapier 40-point infrared, which is absolutely the best unit to counter helorushes in 1v1. The Wolverine, I'm not a big fan. Why not spend 5 points more? You're gonna have Rapier. Rapier can shoot 8 missiles without reloading, which is huge. Also more range, meaning it will get like 1 or 2 more missiles. Also they fly very fast. Yeah. I'm not sure if they have 5 or 6 AP. I think 5, the Rapier. AG rather. But it doesn't really matter against most. No, they have 5. Alright, to summarize, I disagree with this part. Do not get 2 CVs. friendlies, enemy spawn, securing, bad idea, just keep your own. You should win regardless, and if you lose it, you should lose regardless unless your opponent is stupid. Very cheap, and they are the M... Oh, this is the second unit you recommends, the M163 CS. This isn't even the anti-air unit. Like, it has decent anti-air capabilities, but it gets outranged by helopods, so meaning it will be stunned and panicked, most of it. Like, I don't see how this could ever work. And yeah, I've tested this unit and it just was completely useless. Same for the CPTU, though there's mostly the problem that you can't really spread them fast enough, and well, this problem they have also. And also, like, you can't spawn this unit efficiently and get them into position. Like, it might be decent in combination with other on very specific maps, but in general it just doesn't work. Alright, final risk, moving the hidden CV to a secure spawn. My strategy is just keep your CV and your main spawn alive. Get enough AA to finish off the remaining helos, just have enough reserve points to kill them in the first place is the solution to this. Because if you don't, you're probably going to die after that. Finally, add rush to your mute list. Exactly, this is the main counter because not that many people rush, helo rush, and none of them are good enough to vary their gameplay with normal gameplay, so that you have to adjust to that. You will struggle to consistently deal with helo rushes. You will not with what I'm going to tell you later in a minute. I've been heal rushed 20 to 30 times in ranked. Okay. I probably haven't been heal rushed that many in Red Dragon, but sure. You got unlucky, I assume. If we include rushes that I knew were coming. If you exclude rushes, I probably won less than 5. That's unfortunate. But not unexpected if you do not keep reserve points, for which I can't blame you. Actually, you do not need to start with the AA, you can just keep reserve points and then buy them. Fortunately, most healer rushers suck at the game, this is correct. They will make lots of mistakes. Like, once I used to watch like the replays of people who healer rush me in Airline Battle and Red Dragon, and they just were shit at healer rushing correctly. Like, less so in Airline Battle because you could just buy only Puma Pirate, which used to be almost as good as Puma Cassiope is. So, and you could get them with like 10-point infantry, so you can imagine how that looks. Those healer rushes were a lot stronger than what we have now. A lot stronger. Anyway, let's go into the game. Actually, hold on. This fucking recording problem. Please tell me you can see it. Alright. Alright. I played some 1v1 rank today. I had some time, some free time, and I felt like playing Red Dragon again. So I played 3 games today, and all 3 times the people were low enough ranked so that I decided to play with enough of a buffer so that I have almost 100% win rate if they do decide to heal rush me. However, they did not. So I can show you the deployments and just tell you what I would have done if they healer rushed, and trust me, this does work. If you really get healer rushed a lot, you should play Commonwealth because you get the Trick Drapier, but really it also works with Eastern Bloc. Just not that good. I play Eastern Bloc because I don't really care about my elo, so if I get healer rushed once and lose like 10% more of the time, it's not the end of the world for me, and I just prefer the game style I can play with Eastern Bloc. So yeah, first game I found a person quite a bit lower ranked than you. In general, I would recommend against low ranked people you can allow yourself to start with less units. so that you win 100% against heal rush. Like if a higher or equally ranked person and you heal rushes you, that's fine, just add them to the mute list and you'll get that elo back in no time. Like I wouldn't recommend to keep reserve points with how infrequent heal rushes are. If there were like a meta where 30 to 20% of the time actually people at your rank would heal rush you, if you are at the rank where you think this is the case, obviously do keep reserve points, because this will result in you already winning those games all the time, and then you just have to kind of either get better than those people so that you can also win more than, well, a bunch of the games where you do start with reserve points and they actually do not heal rush, or just get it back on the other way with the mute list. And if you have like 100% win rate, if let's say an equally ranked opponent as you heal rushes you like 30% of the time, if you keep like 300 reserve points, you should win every time they rush, so you only need to win 20 out of the remaining 70%, so that's less than 1 in 3 times to actually gain elo against them, so you should be soon higher ranked than them. And in general those people are pretty bad, so my advice is just get better at the game in normal gameplay. Also, like, you should take less of the map and then spawn all your units once you know it's not a heal rush and regroup and attack somewhere. You will see me doing this because I'm confident this person is 2 ranks lower than me, that I will be able to win regardless. I'd also do this against a colonel. Alright, basically this deployment has like 300 or so reserve points. I start with a couple stuff I'm gonna send here. Also have 1 anti-air already bought. I chose to not start with a helo and not start with a plane. If the helo rush is coming, I will see it around here, because I'm going to unload my recon. The reaction is this command tank. I'm gonna drive backwards down here, and I'm gonna spawn roughly 300 to 400 points of anti-air, which will be here. Also, there's another thing which was completely wrong in that guide, which said you want to spread your anti-air. That's just, don't do that, ever. Yes, make little distances so they do not get shot by the same ammo or stuff, and also make sure they're not too close together so they shoot immediately at the same helo. But in general you want to keep them together, because that's also why heal rush is strong, because it's a blob. If the helos were come one by one, it wouldn't be strong. So basically all its blobs shoots at few units, meaning these will die very fast. But if you have a blob, it will have lots of targets while your entire blob shoots at them. Concentration of fire, it's a very basic concept. So basically around here I know for sure a heal rush isn't coming 99% of the time, because I do spot it. I would spot it if it was here. I unloaded this recon for this purpose. If it was here, I'd have like 400 points soon, on which I could buy anti-air here and move this back, which would, like Eastern Bloc, if I had a Commonwealth deck, this would be easily enough. Eastern Bloc deck, it is almost always enough. Like, you can just get the 35 point AAA unit. Also, I have some anti-air here. I also bought 2 of those guys and 1 of these guys. If we fly here and I see it, I will do some damage. They can drive backwards, they're very fast, while these go up and act as meat shields, so they get a couple shots off. This also helps. So basically, if there was a heal rush in this game, I would have won 99% of the time. Now you see me spend some points, what I think I need. This is around 400 points, I believe, with additional reserve points. 85 points, 245, 285, This is 50 points with the thing inside. 285, meaning 235 plus this is 250. Then 300, 350 plus, I'm pretty sure I had still some reserve points here. Yeah. Also, actually I had bought this later. Oh yeah, I had still one. Also, I did not buy a second CV because I could possibly have lost like 3 minutes times plus 2 is 300 divided by maybe 100 points I would have lost if he kept center from the beginning, which he didn't do. And I'm more than fine than that, playing like that against a somewhat lower ranked player. And yeah. With this deck, you want to rely on this unit. I think it's very good against Healer Rush. Maybe you also can get a struck too if you want to. And you should have some of these, and also maybe one drop from the start deployment. Like if you want to be even more safe, you can keep your anti-air for a second or your anti-plane and anti-air here, and then you move them out of the main way of the Healer Rush so that it has to fly either longer or it has to be shot in the side, which is harder to deal with for them. Yeah, and the game is pretty much over at this point. I will just let it tick down. It's not really the point what's happening in the game. It's more about the deployment itself. Alright. Also, this guy was playing a lot worse deck as me, which is also very helpful that people make mistakes in deck building at lower ranks than yourself, or more than you do, if they are lower ranked than you in general. Then this is the second game I played today, to again look at the deployment and how I would have dealt with a Healer Rush. Again, one tank CV. If I see a rush, it will run away. Like, you can put it here and decide to run away like this when your anti-air is grouped up here, or you can just drive backwards like this. Here I had like 400 reserve points because I can just buy those. If he starts capping all his 2-pointers with Hilo, he will have like 300-ish or 200-ish conquest points ahead of me. If I buy them immediately in Hilos, once I know there isn't a rush, like I do know now. Also, I started with many units with anti-air capability here. Yeah. So if you Healer rushed me and I didn't start with a plane, so I could buy more anti-air, I would just have spammed anti-air AAA mostly. Like rapiers, they are better against Healer rushes, but there are not enough Healer rushes in the meta. Like if there were, I would just do the exact same thing with Commonwealth. This would be a Chief and Command tank, and I would use Track Rapiers and maybe 1 or 2 SAS in the start deployment, which I could turn back and also have help. I just remember something that he suggested, also buying autocannon helos against enemy Healer rush. Don't fucking do that ever, that's absolutely terrible. And yeah. Alright, let's see how this game plays out. It's not... yeah. This also wasn't very hard to win because the other person made a bunch of mistakes. I'll just let it go through in 10 times speed. You can skip ahead, I suppose. Also, I bought a heavy. I don't really recall why I did that. That's looking back. That's a bad idea. Pretty sure I bought this from the start. Probably don't do this. Yeah, just save more points for anti-air. This is assuming you think you can win against. Like, this person was low ranked, so I really wasn't worried at all. Even if I start with 600 actually points in fighting forces, I expected the person to make enough mistakes so that I would be able to win close to 100%. The last game I played today, again a lower ranked person, so I decided to make the start. So basically, why I'm doing this is just to show that you show what deployment will win 100% against helorushes. Like, don't expect against an equally skilled player to have a good win rate, but you do not need a good win rate. You need like less than 30% win rate to actually win more than 50%, and winning more than 50% is all you really need to want to do. And also in ranked, there really only are people who either rush 100% heal rush or play 100% normal. I haven't found a single good player who actually does both in ranked. So realistically, you don't need to worry about that. If that was actually the case, it would get more complicated, but like right now you can do this 100% of the time, but if they were actually players who would build their range more intelligently, you couldn't. You probably couldn't, or they would realize it and just exploit it by decreasing their heal rush frequency. Alright, again, this deployment here I had not as many reserve points because I wanted to get this town as well. However, I do have a mortar, meaning I can put smoke here, making it extremely hard for them to spot my tank and almost impossible to kill it. If something is coming, I just spam my anti-air here. If you play Commonwealth, you want to have it drive. Well, this is kind of awkward, so you want to drive it out in the open, because otherwise they're going to be right on top of you, and you're going to have problems with the track draper, but it's very doable. With Commonwealth, you probably need a 30-point helo, like one of the links, 20mm links, to spot the heal rush sooner. Like, I would have only spotted it once it was here, but that would have been more enough time to spawn like 350 points of units here, which would have dealt with almost any heal rush. My strategy is to buy one CV but keep it alive. Like, I can go drive it here, as well as put smoke on this entire thing. Like, if I expected actually a heal rush to be intelligent, I could also put smoke in a different place to confuse my opponent, but I don't think they are, so I do what actually is most efficient and not what would work if the enemy was more intelligent, because I do not give heal rushers much credit for intelligence. Anyway, like this, you want to have this distance, because this will mean close to your anti-air if they try to kill it, and they have to make a decision to either hunt a CV or try to kill all the anti-air, which is probably the better choice, but they do not know this. Alternatively, you can have a fast CV here and just have it fast move away, and then have your anti-air just spread around. You want to have them in a small area. Alright, let's see. Also, this game wasn't very hard. Against lower ranked person, you shouldn't really have issues if you start with reserve points. You see, and here are reserve, all the stuff I could buy with reserve points. And like, if you play against an equally skilled person, do not contest this area if you start with the reserve points, because you're just gonna lose. you have to experiment with attacks on this side, like try to get this forest and then attack this, or do not attack this. Like in general, in the competitive play, there is very few variations in my experience, though I haven't really played in the last couple of weeks, so I can't say this with high certainty, but for the longest time there was extremely little innovation. Like if this game was played seriously, there would be many strategies which were well tested. How can you attack this from blue side? How can you attack this from red side? And stuff like that, instead of like 90% of the people just fighting over this and whoever gets it winning. But no one really tries to play this game competitively, or rather invests like really time into stress testing stuff and really experimenting with what openings do well against what openings, and people just play it for fun, as far as I've seen. Anyway, the rest of this game, it was also pretty uneventful. Like the opponent could not capitalize on having more units here because he brought the wrong units mostly, and he did some mistakes as well. Also I had smoke to fall back in case he was actually playing better, in which case I could have attacked later. But he was not, and also this was a pretty easy victory. I didn't even lose this one. Also, a small comment at this point. I do not need to cap any sectors, so I put the CV in the most secure place. Like I have units all around here, or rather when I put it here like a couple minutes ago, most of these were around this. It cannot be killed by helo. I have this unit, it should not be spotted. Like I do not need the +1 of either of those sectors. I don't care at all. I'm aware I'm quite a bit ahead in destruction points. That's also something that I've seen people do wrong. You need to be very aware of your win condition. For example, my win condition is do not lose your only CV to some special forces here, and other than that I'm going to win. So I just keep reserve CV here instead of buying more defenses. Realistically I should have done both this and more defenses, but yeah. At this point, more CVs. I think I'm gonna move this into a sector as well. Yeah, that's pretty much everything that is to see in this game. Like it's really not about the gameplay, it's just about like everyone should be able to win against people like 200 points ranked lower than them. And if you're just interested in elo points, like you lose once, and then every time you come online and you see they're all online as well because you have them in your mute list. If you won or did not win against them, like for example I have no one here because I do not know this trick for very long. I only have one channel muted, which is the Wargame channel, which you absolutely need to do. Oh no, wrong button, fucking hell, I meant to press this. Anyway, once you have them in your mute list, you can just wait until they're online, and then you search for them, and then you know it's a healer rush, and then you win. Easy game. However, on the topic, I still think healer rush is slightly overpowered, even in 1v1, or rather it would lead, if people played optimally, it would lead to players starting like 15 to 25% of the time with a healer rush, which would result in... Okay, hold on, let me pull up the calculator, I don't want to talk out of my ass. Fucking hell. Where the fuck is it here? So 0.85 times 0.85, meaning either 27 75% of the time it would be a healer rush if both people do it 50% of the time, or if they do it 25%, it's 0.75 times. Oh fucking hell, I put the wrong. 0.75 times 0.75. How the fuck can't I type? Okay. Which would mean like 33.75% of the time they would healer rush. There would be healer rush from one or both people, which would create boring gameplay. So you can't have a balance unless you do something game mechanics change, as in it actually gives you a notification if the enemy starts with like more than 300 points in heals or something like that, which I have argued for in the past but which was ignored by everyone. You still have like, it would be good to 10% of the time do a healer rush, because you always want to save on anti-air and you always want to save on early warning systems against a healer rush, because you always want to have a little bit more ground units to have a better first exchange and to be able to take more ground. So if a healer rush is a lot less scary and a lot less frequent, you would just do less preparation, so you would have to nerf or change a lot of mechanics to actually make it completely unviable. Like it will, if you only do like normal changes, for example, more splash damage, which I have suggested in the past, and stuff like that, it would never go away completely. You would have to do like infantry, command infantry in buildings would have to be completely invisible to healers, which I have also suggested in the past, which was not possible. To never have healer rushes, basically. There would have to be some really significant change. Alright, for the two people who actually have suffered through this rant, like I admit this isn't the best structured video or like good in terms of how easy it is to understand what I'm saying. But if you are really interested in wargame, maybe you have suffered through this. If you're hearing this, perhaps you have, perhaps you just skip to the end. Well, anyway, I hope this helped you understand how to counter healer rushes as they currently exist in ranked, because it was a very clear, well, there's two things: countering healer rushes and getting just elo. Getting elo is through the mute trick. You will more than break even on elo, even if you do not do what I said at all. Just realize when there's a healer rush in your game once you've met them once, because there aren't that many of them. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. Well, I hope this helped you getting better at wargame and understanding how to counter 1v1 healer rushes and what not to do against 1v1 healer rushes, and what decks to play against it and stuff like that. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Bye.